Okay, here we go. Testing. Oh, forgot again. Testing. What is this? Shelf life 6, 7? I don't know. You'll know when I post it up. Got this little bad boy yesterday. Did a little bit of running. But it says stuff on the back. This is from the Hartford Marathon. This is my second time running it. I did it as being spiteful for the aerobic capacity that I have lost. I used to display all my old bibs and medals and things like that, and they were all pre-COVID. And I was just looking at the wall, collecting dust at the beginning of this year, and I was like, I'm doing Hartford. That's it, and I don't care. And there it is. I'm not exactly happy with my performance. No. But we're at a new low, and it's time to rebuild. It says on the back here, so you can see it's the arches. That's you run through here when you're done. The Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Arch in Hartford, Connecticut was dedicated in 1886 to honor the 4,000 Hartford citizens who served in the Civil War and the 400 who died for the Union. There you go. I just put it on my neck because it was in my truck, and I brought the box with all the collected ones because now they're not on the wall. I'll show you. They're in a box, but this isn't about exercise, even though I did have to brag it was yesterday. So there we go. On to reading. Lonesome Dove. Larry McMurtry. What page am I on? Let's see. I don't have notes either again, so we're going to be freeballing this, and it will be just as crazy and dilapidated as usual. I am on chapter 70. I didn't think I was going to get that far. That is page 543 in my edition. Oh, don't lose that page. And I don't know if you've seen any of my posts lately on this, because I try to do quick little spouts and what have you that aren't quite well thought out, that I try to get out within a minute. I can slow down with these, though. I do this every time. We got to remind ourselves. Last week, the first week that I was reading this, it was just a nice, happy, moving along narrative. And then I said last week that it started to branch out. And now we're getting this narrative. And it was real smooth, this narrative, and it's the stories just ended seamlessly, and not ended, but they just flowed seamlessly. And it's not like one was getting more boring and you're hoping to get back to the main one. This week, they all started intersecting again, and it was really cool to see how this group met with this group and how these people ran into those people. And when most of these meetings happened, immense amount of brutal, fast, swift violence. And it was like, whoa, this is not a John Wayne movie. This is vicious. And I'm here for it. So I didn't expect to get to chapter 70. I didn't expect to get this far because, I was kind of thinking about the run, and then I didn't have the opportunity on Thursday when I normally read, but Friday I was able to pick up where I left off. So Lonesome Dove, I am absolutely enjoying this. With that being said, I have not plowed into anything else. I have not read any more White Noise by DeLillo. Haven't touched it, and The Count has just been sitting there. And it's kind of a shame, but it's still fresh in my mind. I know exactly where I am. I'm with the Abbey, the gentleman who is in the other prison cell, and he just brought our protagonist to his spot, and now they're like, oh, it's possible for us to get out of here. So that's where I am with that. I don't have all the specifics, but I know roughly where I am in that story, and that's pretty exciting. However, let me see. I got a bunch of stuff down here. I know, so you just see the top of my head. Now, last week I talked a little bit about poetry and finding some more modern poetry and going to the library. I went to the library again. We'll have updates with that. I got my kid a whole bunch of Halloween reading stories, and those have been fun. Some have been like, ooh, this is a little too scary, and some have been boo, And then the next page just says boo boo. And I'm like, I get it, but can we have more than a word? So I found on Yale Open Courses. I don't know if I talked about this last week. In Yale Open Courses, I watched the intro and I started gathering all of the materials I would need to follow along for the Yale Open Course. I think it's 301 Modern Poetry. And I don't know who's seen this or who hasn't, so I'm just going to sing its praises. I like that kind of syllabus structure, and it has like a lecture. And even if not everyone likes the lecture or thinks that this guy knows what he's talking about, for me it's just like a jump off point. It's instead of me just wandering around, mm, I get, is this good poetry, is this how you critique poet, I don't know, I'm just, it's like abstract art. With abstract art, I know what I like, but then there's also things to consider with a more seasoned artistic eye, and I don't know what those things are. So you have to educate yourself if you're not in that kind of academia. And I don't have the money or time or wherewithal to be dealing with all that. So I got to be self taught. And that's kind of what we're doing here. This community's been awesome with it. So with the Yale Open Courses, first week or first 2 weeks was and it's all modern poetry. There's a whole list of everybody, and the first week was Robert Frost. And for those of you who know or don't know, I'm just going to give what I know about Robert Frost. Robert Frost was like an OG of poetry, uh, early 1900s, and he is known, or at least he has the connotation of that, like New England, Boston, the Red Barn, walking around in the woods, cows. Like that's how I always pictured it. But it was really cool going through the reading assignments and like, okay, instead of just digging into this book, having a little bit of structure, having a little bit of class going on. And I took notes like I was a student doing all this. And I read one of his first thing I read was an essay called The Figure a Poem Makes. And it was all about how Frost talks about what poetry should be and what he he thinks it should, how, what it can do. And I had a couple gems I wrote down. Like love, it should start with delight and end in wisdom. Pretty good. Pretty good. Another beauty was that quote, originality and initiative are what I ask for my country. End quote. Wow. Originality and initiative. And to have those two things together, to think for yourself originally and to take action with that original thought, to have them both together and to ask a country for that, I think it was a little more beyond his time. Like he's not necessarily thinking of nations, he's thinking of the people. That's the way I took it. And another thing, like I've seen from abstract artists, he said that for poetry should be kind of barfed out. Like you should not be, when it comes out, just let it flow, man. Flow state, let it happen. And he said to work on it later, but not worried into being. Worried into being. That a lot of people who write, they're fearful of that first line. Same thing with painters. They're fearful of that first stroke. Like, and when I, in my own painting, it has turned into giving myself permission to suck and giving myself permission to make a mess. Like it is like opening up a gate to, I'm gonna ruin this canvas. And it's that emotion. Like I paint with knives, so it's like, you know, and I started doing that with my own words and my own prose and things like that. And to see someone who's from that early Americana say that, you can work on it later. Just get it out. Thank you. Needed to hear that. Let's see. You know what? I'm just gonna. Don't have to rush with noises. I read Mowing, which apparently is a sonnet, and I read Birches, which is was beautiful. And Mowing was about using a scythe, like the Grim Reaper, cutting the grass with a scythe. And I wrote what I wrote down was the sweetest dreams that labor knows. My long scythe whispers and left the hay to make. Sweetest dream that labor knows. I don't know what to make of that, but I kind of get a feeling of it. The sweetest dream that labor knows. Just the I get the vibe of him from the doing of the work, like that sweetness and labor. Those are two things that are not necessarily back to back. But I don't have the big poetry analytical brain. I'm working on it. See, this is a process. Birches, that just without even reading the notes, Birches was really, really cool because the talk about, I specifically remember him painting the picture of the varnish of the ice on the outside of a tree, how it looks like a varnish and how it would break off and how it would be silent when it hits the snow, when it just goes like it would, when it would plop into a snowbank. The way that you can use minimalistic words or the minimum amount of words to create that image. I think Waste Mailing List was talking about this imagism. Well, I might be completely butchering that. It's all coming in. I didn't have a plan for this one, but we're trying here. But my favorite this week from Robert Frost that I was not expecting was the poem Out, Out. And that is about the cruelty and brutalism of a chainsaw. I was not expecting a chainsaw poem from Robert Frost. And okay, if you haven't read it yet, here's a spoiler, but it's a poem, so take it for what it is. This is about the rattling chainsaw and how it's singing and how it's cutting through, and basically it's a poem about I think it's a boy, or a teenage boy, and he winds up cutting his arm, or he gets a gash, he gets messed up by a freaking chainsaw, one of my worst fears. And his wife or his sister's in the house, like, oh, something happened, and she he says to her, like, don't tell the doctor not to amputate or something like that, and he just winds up dying, like, just chainsaw accident, dead guy in a freaking Robert Frost. Whoa, man, brutal, brutal. I thought that was sick. So I've been thinking about it all week, the Out poem. I think I read it 2 or 3 times too. I did not. I found out that he also did the Kennedy inauguration. He read something there. I meant to watch it this week on YouTube. I just didn't have time. I was too worried about electrolytes and making sure I was hydrated and stressing out about things, and then telling myself, don't worry about it. It's time to recover. Chill. So my head has kind of been all over the place. And I just took out the air conditioner. It is like the end of fall allergy season. So everyone I know, it's like I got pressure behind the eyes. Like, so if I sound raspy or if I'm sorry. Then I got a whole bunch of 2B Reds from Robert Frost that I'm going to be checking out. Oh, and then I heard about iambic pentameter. I gave myself a headache trying to write a couple lines, and then I would check in Chat GPT if this is actually iambic pentameter, and it's like, no, this is stressed and unstressed. I got really aggravated with that, and then I gave myself permission to scroll. So Robert Frost, snag that from the library. First 2 weeks are Robert Frost, and I didn't know what else I was going to need for the course. But the next week after that, W.B. Yeats. Am I saying it right? Am I saying it wrong? So this guy's coming up next, along with Lonesome Dove. That's kind of my plan for the rest of the month. If I can finish Lonesome Dove early, I'll read more Monte Cristo. I'll read more White Noise. I might read one of those skinnies like War or the Clarice Lispector one I showed last week. But also this week, I got some book mail. And because I'm excited about this Yale Open course, I got stuff for that course, part of the materials. Like I said before, I like the syllabus. I like the structure of things. I've posted on my Instagram the David Foster Wallace syllabus or syllabi. I found those extremely useful. I still have a bunch of stuff from him I still need to read, but this week I got Volume 1, Modern Poetry. I got all these I'm about to show I got from thrift books. If you buy this new, it's like $97. No, I got this for like 23 bucks. Then I got Elizabeth Bishop complete poems. I know nothing about Elizabeth Bishop, so that'll be a fun mystery. And this one has been getting a lot of attention lately, and I'm not going to be left out. Selected poems of Ezra Pound. I'm saving it till I get to the chapter, but I cannot wait to get into this. Cannot wait. Yeah, and again, I don't know anything. Like this is completely new to me. I'm going to take a ponder at the back. Ezra Pound has been called the inventor of modern poetry in English. Interesting. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but very cool. So that is kind of my week of reading and books. However, this morning, see, I didn't post. You people are the first ones that are knowing publicly that I ran the marathon. My brother and my sister-in-law are running a half marathon today, and I didn't want to steal their thunder. I actually didn't tell anybody I was running except my wife 3 weeks ago. So nobody knows except her and family that I told afterwards, and now you. I haven't made any posts whatsoever, but I opened up Facebook and Instagram and Strava and everything to see if they were done yet. And I saw one of my poems has been published. And I'd like to read it to you. I have to do it on my laptop now because I would normally do it off of my phone. But, see if I can get this thing on. Here we go. Now, like I had said last week, I have like a bunch of haikus and a bunch of weird writings. And I didn't know how to submit this stuff. And I kept looking up how to finally get published. And I don't want to do self-publishing and stuff like that. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And just like with painting, you gotta give yourself permission to suck. So I am not good at navigating all this. And everything I saw kept saying you have to put in poetry submissions. You have to do submit. I'm like, I don't know. I saw pay to submit. I don't like that. No, I'm not paying. This is not a billboard project. So I reached out to there was a poetry submission from a local-ish magazine called Black Noise Magazine. And they have been really cool in like I'm in a band in the underground like death metal community and the surrounding like alternative lifestyle community. And we met them for a photo shoot and they were really cool people. So I saw on one of their posts that they were doing poetry submissions. And after doing this research and kind of starting this page, it was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to submit. So they said that they were going to give me a web exclusive this month. And in February, they're going to put a different one of mine into print. And I was stoked. So when I opened up to see if my brother and sister-in-law were running, I got like a whole bunch of notifications from Black Noise. And it was, we have published your poem. And I'm going to read it here for you. A little backstory on it. It's called Validated. And it's about an ode, I guess. Am I using that word right? It's an ode to my wife's father who has passed. So, here we go. See if I can read this nicely. And this is my first time ever reading a poem publicly, even though I'm in my basement. Validated. Should I hold it like this? I don't know. I'm nervous. I smell your cigarettes and kicked you out from fear. Had a feeling you had been here to say hi or have a beer. I admit I was a fool and the grief I won't forget. Despite the growing insight, you see my high tide of regret. That musty chair and uniform, the cooler and the teeth. Those tools I used to keep that promise, like the saw with that sheath. Hard lessons are worth learning. The cost is high, all right. But I can hear that laughter still so big and so bright. Parlor tricks or disbelief, she hung on every word. Whether I buy in or not, still it shook my world. I see you at the megaphone, the teacher by your side. You've held my son and other ones, put a sparkle in their eyes. I'll have you know you'd be so proud since you saw her last. She's the one who gets me through the present and the past. And give that dog a hamburger and let him in the pool. If you're ever in the neighborhood, just knock and ask for the fool. So there it is. There's my first published poem. It's called Validated. Check it out on Black Noise Magazine. And that's it, guys. That's all I have for you this week. Thank you again for tuning in. I almost forgot to say it. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, and please leave a comment. Leave a comment. I like talking to you guys. This is fun. So, ciao. Have a wonderful week. Arrivederci. Sayonara. I'll see you later. Love y'all. Bye. Out.